Oh my goodness, guys. Well, I don't know if there's a better way to kick off this thing than with the next guest. Tim Draper, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Today's a great day, it's a great day for Bitcoin. It's a great day for the blockchain. It's a great day for the decentralization of the world. I'm feeling like things are moving in our direction. I'm really happy
Well,
that we've got things moving. In fact, I'm even wearing my Bitcoin DGov tie, hashtag DGov, decentralized government.
That's a new one. I haven't had that one before.
This is my newest. This is one I designed myself. It's got the Draper Associates logo on it.
I actually dig that one. Not that I wasn't a fan of the purple and gold one.
I love the purple and gold. I know it's a wonderful thing.
The red, the power tie version, and then the.
Oh, you even remember the red one? Well, the red one was a cheap tie. It was all white on the back side. So if it flipped over, all you saw was white. That one I try not to wear anymore, but I did like it.
When it goes over 50K, you can do an upgrade. So I like the fact that you're rocking a new Bitcoin tie.
Yeah, we're at 50 something today. So I do feel like we're, and I made that prediction of 250K by 2022, and I made it 3 years ago or 4 years ago. And now it's only 5X. I mean, at that time, Bitcoin was at about 3,000 or 4,000.
Yeah.
And people really looked at me a little funny when I made that prediction. But now they're looking at me. Look at me a little funny, but not quite the same.
You predicted a couple of things right over the year, and one of the things that I wanted to focus on is through that lens. I this audience is filled with what I call micro-preneurs, entrepreneurs, people that may not be, someone who would come to you and say, here's my idea and raise money. People that actually move markets a different way. They move markets through aligning themselves with vehicles that are timely, relevant, and where they can essentially participate in the success or the growth of that mass adoption. And so, the bulk of today's audience is hyper entrepreneurial, but they're at various stages. Some of these folks are entrepreneurial tendencied, meaning they may not define themselves an entrepreneur, but they have the entrepreneurial tendency, and they're looking for something that they can ride and that they can learn while they earn. Other people have decades of experience, but as we pair them up with these amazing technologists that'll be here all weekend and things like that, I thought that your view of from your vantage point now in your career on what the value of an entrepreneur is in general, regardless of the form, flavor, and style, would be a great segue. And because you've been able to see around corners, whether it was SpaceX or whatever, or Bitcoin buying it from the government at auction, at $600 and some odd when they got it all from Mt. Gox, like you've made bets, and like a VC, most of those bets don't work out, but the ones that do really, pay off well. And you've been right a lot. And so hopefully that continues. But I do know that you're right about entrepreneurship from our conversations over the last year or so. And I really wanted to impart that wisdom to these folks. So I'm going to give you the mic, and you're going to vamp on and
good. Well, first of all, this may be the best time ever to be creating a new business. I was there at the beginning of the internet, and I was there when the computers were sort of a big deal. And then I was there at the beginning of the internet, and we got to see how the internet transformed communications and information and gaming and entertainment, media. All these industries got transformed, and it was a great place to be. And everybody rose with that amazing transformation. And it opened up the world. It made it much more global. Geographic borders became less relevant. And then I was feeling like, hey, we've kind of done it. Everything's great. And then Bitcoin got invented. And with Bitcoin came the blockchain, smart contracts. And then all that artificial intelligence and big data has also transformed technology. And so with these new technologies, we have the potential to transform industries that are even bigger than the ones changed by the internet. And that is banking, insurance, government itself and healthcare and finance, all of finance. I think not just banking, but all of finance. And the reason is these the idea of a currency that is global and open and transparent and decentralized really does play into the globalization that started to happen with the internet and allowing us all to communicate with each other. We used to be tribal. It used to be, I draw a line here and I'd say, you don't cross that line, I don't cross that line. And we'll both build our societies and everything will be fine. So no war, we'll just, you stay over there, I'll stay over here. Well, then all of a sudden we realized with the internet that, hey, that stuff you're doing over there, that would be helpful for us. That stuff we're doing, that'll be helpful for you. Maybe we should do more trade. And all of a sudden the world opens up and we pull 1 billion people out of poverty, and we have this amazing run that is the internet. Well, now you've got this really interesting new time because I can have, I don't have a ledger with me, but I can put my money right here. I don't need the bank. I don't need that, all those people dressed very fancily coming out of those big glass and steel buildings called banks, because I can actually just take my money. I need to send it to you. Oh, here, it's done. And so suddenly banking is going through a major transformation. All of finance is going to go through a transformation too, because the blockchain keeps perfect records. So finance had a lot of friction to it. It had accountants and auditors and lawyers and transfer agents and all sorts of people who are kind of in between getting a deal done. Well, if you have the blockchain, it keeps perfect records. It knows exactly what your financial situation is. And as a venture capitalist, I'm looking and I'm saying, this could be really great for us, because I could set up, let's say I raised a whole fund in Bitcoin, and then I invested all that money in Bitcoin into a bunch of different companies. And then those companies paid their employees and suppliers in Bitcoin. Well, and then one of the companies gets sold for Bitcoin. And then the Bitcoin would go through the natural waterfall from the limited partner to the general partner. All that can be done, and I can keep perfect track of how all my companies are doing, if they're spending too much, if they're looking. So there are these interesting changes that are going to go on in finance that are hugely significant. So finance is going to change. Insurance is going to change. Right now, when you insure something, you pay your premium, you pay your premium, you pay your premium, and then there's a claim. And then you fight with the insurance company until you finally settle on some number, and then you get it, and then it's done. Well, what if an insurance company was set up with the blockchain and surveillance and smart contracts? Then you pay your premiums, and you get a check, before you realize that your house has burned down. You already have a check because the surveillance has seen that house, which was insured, burned down. This is the value of it. Here's the check, and it shows up in your wallet immediately, your Bitcoin wallet immediately. That kind of that changes the whole nature of insurance.
Even to that point, because that's not a small one, right? The enablement of decentralized identities, every actor in the marketplace, from the peer to peer, paying into their premium into the entity, another decentralized ID that is the company, right? This co-op model that gets enabled by decentralized IDs, real-time data ownership and encryption at the individual actor level, allowing that surveillance to not be draconian, but to be beneficial, a benevolent surveillance, right? These things are enabled by the structure and the design of these decentralized systems, organized in a way where there's a centralized kind of net, but that's governed by a decentralized, group of actors, and then the currency flowing through that happening in real time. Everything that you're saying.
Yeah, the decentralization goes further though, because what is government? But I don't know, 80% of it, in fact, all of it is about safety and security, but 80% of it is a big insurance company. It's your healthcare insurance and your workman's comp insurance and your social security and your welfare. They're all insurance packages. So, so you could set the whole thing up as set up a government 11 miles offshore or up in space. You could set up a government that was completely decentralized and open and transparent, and it can be anywhere. And we, as citizens of the world, could start choosing the governance that we wanted. And then the governments would have to compete for us. They would have to provide services so that we would be, they'd be accountable to us, just the way any kind of a business is accountable to you. I mean, the hat you're wearing, that competed with other hats. My tie competed with other ties. All of these products or services are provided by businesses that provide options for people, and then the consumer decides. Well, the consumer can decide on their governance, and your governance could be, you could get your Social Security from Chile, and you could get your healthcare insurance from Canada, and then you could get your workman's comp from some satellite that is a new country that doesn't have a landmass. This changes the whole nature of what governance is, and we can start thinking about governance in new ways. I know a lot of people are thinking about liquid democracies, operating cross-border. The Estonian government created the e-residency program, the virtual residency program. People are starting to get in that direction. But this is such a sociological or anthropological change that we're going through, that we have this amazing opportunity. And for you micro entrepreneurs or individual entrepreneurs, this couldn't be a better time, because the amount of change that's about to happen is extraordinary. And entrepreneurs thrive in change. They drive change. They make changes happen. And so this decentralized economy is, well, it's also going to make us all much wealthier because it's trusted. I've started to think about the future of hiring and who to think about hiring. Would I want to hire somebody from California, or somebody from Texas, or somebody from Pakistan? Well, if we're all on Zoom, it doesn't matter. And if we're all operating in Bitcoin, it doesn't matter. But if the person in, I don't know what Pakistan currency is, but let's say it was somebody from Argentina. The Argentinian peso drops 75% a year. So if you're building a company of value in Argentina, you realize that value can't be stored in Argentinian pesos.
Right.
You can't build value in Argentinian pesos, so there's no incentive there. But if you could use Bitcoin, suddenly there's incentive. And me as an employer, I look and I say, well, why don't I hire that person from Argentina? Because the Bitcoin I'd be paying is going to be worth a lot more to them than it is to somebody in California. And the sort of oppressive regulations that California has on employers, I would not be subject to by employing somebody in Argentina. So this new decentralization is going to decentralize more than just the money. It's going to decentralize governments. Governments are going to compete for us across border, all that. And they're all going to be like businesses competing to provide a service to us. And it's decentralization of the workforce, because if I can hire somewhere else for less and with less regulation, I will do that. And longer term, whereas a dollar is generally worth more than an Argentinian peso or a bolivar from Venezuela or a Nigerian naira, Bitcoin is going to be, one Bitcoin is going to be worth one Bitcoin. I love how these people who are still working in the fiat world say, oh, but Bitcoin's very volatile. I look and I say, no, one Bitcoin is still one Bitcoin.
Right.
All these fiat currencies that are very volatile as they slowly disappear off the map.
The volatility mix is in the wrong index, right? The volatility mix is, well, a dollar's still a dollar, but you're not, the volatility is in the fact that we just printed 3 trillion more of them. Like, that's volatile, right? The volatility isn't in what I think I read on the paper. The volatility is in the fully diluted base of that currency. And so when you know there's only 21 million of something ever going to be made, and you know that there's a systematic way to materialize that 21 million, you're thinking on a fully diluted basis of 1 equals 1 versus price fluctuation. But it's a mental shift. So I want to go down a different rabbit hole, though, because, you know, what you said and what you've done a lot of with, you know, Draper University, with Startup House, with like some of these other derivatives that you've, you know, put your DNA into in a meaningful way. One of the things that I think you've probably got a really good lens on, maybe more so than anybody, is the DNA or the nurturing, meaning like, how can I input some of that DNA of entrepreneurship? So I'd like you to talk about, because people on this are very all over the map in their entrepreneurial journey. Some of them are full blown, like, you know,
off to the races.
Yeah, they've got that thing. They're going to run through brick walls. They're going to put a debt in the universe, and they'll eat ramen noodle until they die, if that's the case. But they're going to go that way. Mm-hmm. Majority of entrepreneurs are more what I would call operators, right? They want to do what they want, when they want, where they want, with who they want. They like to make a living. They define that differently, right? And it doesn't matter how they define, as long as they know. And then there's like the entrepreneurial tendencies where maybe they just lost a job. You know, maybe right. they can't drive anymore.
That has created a lot of entrepreneurs.
And so what I want to have you kind of impart is some of the things you've witnessed and the wisdom you've learned, helping people understand the DNA strands that are entrepreneurial, that kind of give you that base of success, like that thing that'll let you know that you're kind of on the right recipe path. Because I think you've got a really interesting lens. You've built a curriculum around it. So what are some of those brands, and so that people can start to go, I've got that one, or maybe I need to fill that one in, or.
Sure. Okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll go through a couple lines of the pledge. Everybody who goes to Draper University has to memorize a pledge. And the pledge starts, I will promote freedom at all costs. And then one of the lines further down the pledge is, I will fail and fail again until I succeed. And then one more, I'll give you the 3 I think are the most important. I will make short-term sacrifices for long-term success. A lot of people make shortcuts. If you're going to be a great entrepreneur, you got to build that business one brick at a time. I don't care how much money you've raised. You've still got to build that business one brick at a time. It's got to be done systematically. You've got to just say every day, you got to say, you know, what brick did I lay today? What thing did I do that made this a little bit better than it was yesterday? And sometimes it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or sometimes 3 steps back and you have to start over. I think entrepreneurs who understand that it's okay to fail are the ones who succeed, the ones who take these extraordinary leaps. Somebody asked me, well, what was the strangest, craziest pitch you ever got? Well, some guy said, we're going to Mars. and I thought, whoa, going to Mars. Okay, how are we going to get there? And that was Elon Musk with SpaceX. We're going to Mars. And what happened was he had this vision, and a bunch of people thought he was crazy. And then there was this small group of people, these generally engineers, the best engineers in the world actually say, how would we get to Mars? What do we need? And then they go and they call Elon and say, hey, I want to join your team. I don't care, pay me whatever. I want to join your team. I'm going for this mission. I'm going to try this new thing. And they're willing to fail. And he's willing to fail. But now, he's an amazing success. We still haven't reached Mars, but he's an amazing success because along the way, he's figured out how to build a business. The other thing is, I don't know why the schools don't teach you this. Make money. Make money. You got to make sure you're taking care of yourself. For the foreseeable future, can you take care of yourself? Okay, that's number one. Number two is make sure your business makes money. If your business makes money, you can grow your business. You can spread it to more people. You can spread your meme to more people. And if you've got a great service and you don't make money, the service only affects the first few customers that you've talked to, instead of the 8 billion people around the globe who could also benefit from your service. So I think those are some of the things. I think the the thinking when we encourage entrepreneurs to start business is this. Here's the process we like to take them through. We have survival training with Navy SEALs and Special Forces, and we have big hackathons and whatever else. But one thing that we do is we say, okay, first, they say, I can't come up with an idea. Don't start with an idea. Start with a problem. What problem do you want to solve? What do you want to go after? And then go to, how might I solve this problem? And then go to, how can I create a service that helps solve this problem in this way? And then how do I make money with that service, providing that service, so that I can create the business that solves that problem. And then what is the most efficient and effective business model that can make that happen? And then the final thing is, how do I delight my customer so much that my customer becomes my sales force? And if you can do those things, you are on the way to becoming a great entrepreneur.
It's so funny that you kind of went there, because for more context on the audience that's specifically engaged in this, what Inevitable has done. So the Inevitable Challenge, which got kind of published a little bit over a year ago. Joshua Denny, who's one of my partners in SDK, but who is the chairman of Inevitable and why we're all here today, put out a challenge. I want to empower 1 million people to a living wage in the digital economy by 2025. And the methodology for doing that was to create a forum and a platform where the best technology companies, the best, the people who've been that entrepreneur, willing to fail, the Charles Hoskinsons, the Alex Mashinsky's, the Bram Cohens, the people that are in this, the Ruben Mayers, those people can come and they can delight customers. And then the peer-to-peer nature of the marketplace and the decentralized idea of the marketplace, the Inevitable group kind of curates brand partners or places where a customer can micro-preneurially find a way to earn an income, earn a living, or buy products that do it for them, whether it be a smartphone that mines, cryptocurrency that's liquid, or whatever that may be, right? And so it's so funny that you kind of went there, because inherently you just went into the thing of, like, if you delight customers, they become your sales force. Well, they'll become your sales force whether they're making money or not.
Right. Either way, they can become your negative sales force too.
They can become your negative sales force too. But if you delight them, right, then you're going to get a referral base. And then if you think about communities of common interest and you think about peer-to-peer, you go, well, what better business model to start to think through than one where when they do refer or sell, they're participating in the value, whatever that looks like, right? And so, the real the thing that I think is a DNA strand that you said about being willing to fail. But I want to hear your methodology for this. specifically because it ties into kind of the DNA of inevitable, which is the tipping of scales, right? Tip the scales. Tip the scales in your favor. You'll hear people say that if you hang around this group a lot. And it's the visual of, what Josh wrote in his book years ago, but it's the visual of if you don't step off the scale, sometimes the scale goes against you, right? And you're down. But if you don't step off the scale, and to your analogy, brick, if every day you choose a thought or you do an action that puts weight, onto the direction you want to go, that it's inevitable at some point the scale will tip. And this is something that entrepreneurs have used in his world for resilience, because it reminds you that, like, even though it may not have tipped yet, if you're doing that action, you're moving in a direction where at some point the inertia will take over, physics will take over, and it will tip in your favor. If you don't do it, then you're staying where you are, and it's going to get worse. But as long as you don't get off the scale, you have a chance. And I know you've seen people fail gloriously, and you've seen some quit, and you've seen others not. And what have you learned about resilience? I mean, how do you cultivate resilience? Because that is probably more important than anything if you're an entrepreneur. You think?
Oh, absolutely. I've seen so many companies give up 2 days before their biggest order comes in. They shut down their business and then the customer shows up. Staying power is so important. Being there is so important. But you got me thinking about something else. You know how Singapore went from being the poorest country in the world to one of the richest over about 70-year period. They were the poorest country in the world because no one trusted them. And Lee Kuan Yew came in there and built trust, and that trust became more and more and more valuable. And now they're the most trusted country in the world, probably.
Yep.
And they are also one of the richest. So poorest to richest, least trust to most trustworthy. If you can build trust with your employees, with your customers, with your suppliers, with everyone around you, you can build something of great value over a long period of time. And that just means you stay on it. You say you're going to do something, you do it. You try something, it doesn't work, you fess up to it. You want to build that trust. The trust will matter to you more than anything else when you over that long period of time. And it isn't just countries that have trustworthy leaders. It's also businesses who have trustworthy leaders that become incredibly successful. Think of how Jeff Bezos is so trustworthy, and he delivers things so well. He makes it so he delights his customers, and we are all so happy that Amazon exists. Think of how each of these people who have built these big businesses, they had to have employees that were with them and trusted them and felt like they were on an important mission. And they had to have customers who felt like, if I ask for this, I get this. And it's the exact same thing. And I know it's coming. And I know it's coming in 2 days or whatever it is. So that kind of trust throughout the system builds great value. And on the other hand, you go to a lot of these African dictatorships and you don't trust them because you want to build something of value. Once you do, the military comes in and says, this is ours. So why build anything of value if you don't have that trust? And if you do have that trust, you say, I really want to help this business become more successful. So your scale is kind of interesting because if you really want to tip the scale, it's a long process of just building trust and reputation.
Yeah. Well, and it starts with trusting yourself to know that you can choose that a decision is your ultimate weapon, and it can work for you or it can work against you. But you don't have to worry about, like, you're going to be thoughtful about the decisions you make. I shouldn't say don't worry about them, but you're going to make wrong decisions. I mean, there's just no way to make a decision and not be wrong. The market can move against you. The regulators can move against you. Something can happen, right? Somebody can die. I mean, there's 10 billion things you can't control. But the one thing we can control is we can make another decision, right? And so if we can trust ourselves to know that we can make another decision, and we can, look at it through first principles and all those things that we can read about, learn, and study from the greats and everything, and we can just do the best we can. Once we make a decision, we have to commit to that, but then we have to make new decisions, like either to compound the positive or to reverse a negative trend before it's too late. And sometimes I think people, when they fail, they forget that. They think, well, I made a decision and now, I don't, and they're making a decision by default at that point, aren't they?
Yeah. Ooh, interesting. Fear can kill a business just like that. You really have to just go. You can't run around in fear. You have to run some protections. You have to do some stuff like that. But generally, you're an entrepreneur. You're up against companies that have hundreds of thousands of people and tons of money and whatever. If you're going to beat them, you cannot ever have fear. I know I used to play football, and whenever I went out there a little fearful, I got injured. And then I realized the only way not to get injured in football is to just go all in and just like, I'm coming for you. I'm going at, you have that crazy go for it. That's what you got to do if you're an entrepreneur. You got to go
for the pile, right? They used to say, don't stand around the pile. That's where you're going to get hurt, right? Get in the
yeah, go into the pile.
Because when you're standing around it, that's when somebody rolls up and your knee's gone, right? If you're in the pile, you're going to have a lot better chance of not getting hurt.
Yeah. So in the book Dune, I love science fiction. By the way, I recommend everyone read science fiction, and I have no idea why there are no science fiction classes in any of the top universities in the world. They don't have classes on science fiction. It is probably the most important thing you can read. But anyway, I read Dune. They say fear is the mind killer. And I've seen it. I mean, you see it with a virus. People run around in fear. Walk around. They're ruining their lives. Go out and live your life.
Yeah.
If you're at all healthy, go out and live your life.
Yeah, I think it's a fine line, right? It's like there's a certain level of self-awareness that is kind of like a table stakes to be able to execute some of these things that you've said. And before you've had that self-awareness, I think the call to action is develop self-awareness, right? And you can do that a lot of ways. You can read science fiction. You can do a lot of things, right? You can challenge yourself. You can fail. Because every single one of those things kind of exposes something outside your comfort zone, right? So the point is there's no new opportunity inside your comfort zone, and our comfort zone is what we used to today. So your comfort zone may be different than mine. The bottom line is if you're not willing to continue to be uncomfortable at Tim Draper today, then Tim Draper today is all you're ever going to have.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the mindset of like. And so I asked that, you're
listen to Chris. This is where you get wisdom. I have found, where does my, I'm getting older. Where does my wisdom come from? All those stupid things I did.
Yeah.
All the big mistakes I made, all the good decisions I made, but making decisions and going for it. That's where my wisdom came from. It didn't come from, of trying to avoid confrontation or avoid being in speaking to a crowd or avoid it. You get a wealth of wisdom from meeting people, getting in front of people, trying things, selling things, buying things. You get your wealth of experience from that, and you really do want to come into your later part of your age having wisdom. You want to have taken those chances because once you've taken those chances, you knew the outcome, you learned the outcomes, and suddenly you have wisdom, and there's nothing more valuable.
Your legacy is intact in many ways, but you not come without a tremendous generational effort and sacrifice. And I know that, as you're in this point of your career, I'm not sure what motivates you today. I'm interested in hearing that, and finding ways for other people to maybe help contribute to that as a way to reciprocate what they've got from you today. So I'd like to give you a chance to kind of talk about through your lens, like what gets you out of bed today? Why are you still doing it, right? From your perspective. And then also, in a family business, right? Which you're in the venture capital business, but really I would say you're in the family business in some ways. I'm curious as to your thought for people that are in a family business or maybe have ambition to be in a family business. What can you impart from?
So here, first, I felt like I was put on the earth to spread venture capital and entrepreneurship around the world. And I did that with my life, and it was fabulous, and the internet helped, and everything was fantastic. And I felt like, okay, now I can kind of relax everything. And then Bitcoin shows up, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be an anthropological leap. We are about to go through a major human change. And I thought, I've got to help drive this. I got to make sure that it happens and happens quickly, because we as humans are going to be so much better off with effective, efficient governance, with a global currency, with open borders, with all that. The wealth of humanity is going to really increase if we help drive this. And I, as a venture capitalist, have to think in terms of sort of a macro thing that's happening. And then I invest in companies that are having some effect and maybe moving us in that direction. I'll make exceptions. I'll invest outside of my mission, but I look and I say, wow, this thing could really help drive this mission. And so I suddenly I have a new mission, and it's to bring us to this anthropological shift. The family thing is great. My grandfather was the first Silicon Valley venture capitalist. And my dad was a pioneer in venture capital, did a whole bunch of great things. I guess pioneers get their arrows in their back, but he was very successful. And then he went off to government, worked for the Exim Bank, and then the UN Development Program. He was the head of the UNDP. And then he came back and he did venture philanthropy. He's had an amazing career. I look at the family in this way. Money comes and goes. And all you can do with your family is to show how much fun your work is. I don't care if you're cleaning toilets or you're launch, or you're a paratrooper or whatever. Show your family how fun and interesting that job is, and then they will work for the work and not worry about the money. And I mean, sometimes you got to really worry about the money, but sometimes it's like, look, you work for the work, everything else falls into place. You love your work, you have fun with your work. I love my work. I have this mission. My kids see it. 3 out of 4 of them are venture capitalists now. My daughter is only backing women, so she has a mission with Halogen Ventures. My son has another mission. He is only going after the consumer. And my other son has another mission, and he just says sci-fi to reality. And so that's Boost VC, and my consumer son is Path VC. They have, in effect, we could say, yeah, it's a family business in some ways, and we're all helping each other all the time. We're always sort of sending deals back and forth and whatever. But they see how much fun I have. My one son, Billy, worked with me for 4 years, and then he decided he was going to be the decision maker, and he's gone off and done Path Ventures. And I think that has passed on. My excitement for this, has passed on to them, and hopefully they will have the same excitement or better, and they'll be able to pass that on to their kids. And venture capital, it may be venture capital, it may be something entirely different. It may shift, it may flow, but if you show that you're having fun working, then everybody around you will also feel that fun. And some days it doesn't feel fun. And those are the days where you have to figure out how to make it fun.
Yeah. And I think, intuitively, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but intuitively, as I hear you say that, a couple of things show up for me that I think are lessons that I have a 9-year-old, right? And so, when you become a parent, I think for most people, something shifts in you. And like, even if you were super aware before, when you become a parent, you kind of want to get as much right as you can. You realize you're going to get things wrong. You realize that, being a perfect parent doesn't exist, but you kind of want to be as much right as you can. And fortunately, I came from someone who really cared a lot about that. And so I got a lot of those benefits. Not everybody does. I was fortunate in that regard. And then there's also, strengths and liabilities. Some of those strengths actually have showed up for me at times in liabilities. But as I look at our son, the thing that I heard you say that is going to stand with me is that if your work is fun, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if your kid wants to go into entrepreneurship or art or music or VC. Certainly in your family, there's been this legacy of venture. And so maybe there was some downhill, but each of you has done your own thing. Your stamp on it and your version of it's totally different than your father's, totally different than your grandfather. Your kids will probably be different than yours. There happens to be this common thread, but it didn't sound like to me like it was like, we're VCs, guys, we're the Drapers. Like, it didn't seem like that ever kind of came up. What it was this you going, I am this, and I'm enjoying it. And when it sucks, I'm going to find a way to make it not suck as bad. And I try and do that. Like when, because there's a lot of days that aren't fun. Especially as an entrepreneur. Sometimes, God, there's been so many years where I tried not to be. Like, I was like, man, maybe I should just, and you just can't. Like, when you start to realize there's some DNA destiny thing, right? You said I was put on this earth to do this. Now, maybe you thought that day one. I did not. I had no idea I was going to be an entrepreneur. That wasn't in my vernacular. It wasn't in my upbringing. It wasn't that. And I have tried in some of those dark moments to not be one. Like, where you go, nope, that's it. I'm going to get in line and I'm going to do that thing and I'm going to go get a job. Right? And no one will hire you. And then typically what happens is, because
and you end up not being a good employee anyway.
Well, then what happens?
Even if they did hire you, as an entrepreneur, they don't get what you're planning on doing.
Well, you won't sit around. So the thing is that what happens is, an entrepreneur of any tendency, in my opinion, they cannot sit around and wait. So there's that thing of like recognizing sometimes we're in the efforts business, and then the universe, God, however you want to relate to it, it's in the results business, right? But if you're in the efforts business, brick, at some point, right, scales, however you want to relate to it, at some point, like the results come. And so if you're not going to wait around for the results, you're entrepreneurial. Because if you try and solve the money problem and you solve it 5 ways, an entrepreneur won't sit around and wait for someone else to dictate that problem being solved. They'll just keep digging. And then eventually what happens is they dig and they uncover an entrepreneurial thing, and that may only last 6 months, but it solves the problem for 6 months. And then, right. And so again, sometimes it's just about self-awareness. But I did hear in that
finding what's right for you, and we all 8 billion of us are helping each other in some small way, and knowing that's the situation, you do have a feeling that, hey, different people do have different reasons for being on the planet, and each one is helping us get better. And best example I have of that is, let's say you have a house and I have a farm, and we don't do a deal and we're not working together. Then you die of starvation and I die of exposure.
Right.
And you multiply that by 8 billion people who are all helping each other in one way or another live a better life. You realize that economy is so interconnected and tied together, and that each individual, each one of those 8 billion people has a real purpose in life, and their survival is all driven by kind of what their mission is, and hopefully they're having fun accomplishing it. And each one of us has a really important purpose in life. So that, and some people are meant to be, a part of a bureaucracy, and some people are meant to be like quick problem solvers, and some people are meant to be, long-term thinkers, and some people are just going to be short-term thinkers. And the combination makes all of our lives much better. Yeah, and if you've got entrepreneur in your blood and you think you want to go get just a regular job, get that job only toward a purpose, because eventually your true mission is going to come out.
Yeah, and like you said, it can be a lot more fun when you're not worried about money. So make money, whatever that is, right? Don't make money to live a life that you feel good with, and most people, that's not Lamborghinis and stuff, so it doesn't really take that much to
and for most entrepreneurs, I mean, they're perfectly happy with peanut butter and jelly. I don't care what fuels my body. I just want my mission's so much more fun and more important than having a fancy dinner. It's not, but my wife likes some fancy dinner, so we go out occasionally.
Yeah. Well, there's, we, like you said, we're all in this together. The hashtag "We Are Inevitable" is this moniker of we're in this together, and we're moving. Look, we're going to move into the future regardless. Right. And I think that's what's so important, that even, I like the Al Pacino quote, "Every time I'm out, I think they pull me back in." Right. That's how I think of you when you're like sitting there going, "Yeah, I accomplished all this stuff." And then Bitcoin comes along. You're like, "Every time I'm out, they pull me back in." Yeah.
It did, boy. Bitcoin, and then all the decentralization, it just sucked me back in. And I went, oh my gosh, that means that we can create competitive governance. That means that we can have a universal currency that we can all use, or multiple universal currencies. I mean, that is such a huge change. So exciting.
And that's the thing, is when you get to a point where you go, I've accomplished all this stuff, a lot of which maybe you didn't even know you would do. Like maybe you set out with these goals, but I'm sure you've exceeded most of them. I mean, knowing some of the companies you invested in, you go, how could I have ever envisioned I would have been part of that? Right. Like, I mean, and met those people, or had the chance to work with that genius. And so no matter what, it's kind of like these things that happen to us, right? These macro shifts that come if we're awake and we see them, and we get to participate at any level, or we get to make a choice like you've done to kind of re-engage. It's like we're still alive. Like, I'm still alive. It's a way to know. I love it. Tim,
I like that. And it is true. I would always set my goals at the beginning of the year. I'd say, okay, well, what did I accomplish? What did I not accomplish? And most of those goals, when I was younger, were done in 3 months. So my vision wasn't much longer than that. And then I'd have all those other 9 months to do more stuff. Now, when I set those goals, it's like, oh boy, I didn't get it done this year. We got to get it done next year, because you add baggage as you get older. But the other part to that is that you when you said I accomplished more than I ever thought I would. Yeah, I mean, and I didn't know where it was going to come from. Fundraising is this way. You spend all your time fundraising with one person who's asking all these questions, and nothing comes out of it. And then you go and you talk to somebody else, and they just say, sure. And you go, oh, God, I didn't even have to go through all this stuff. But going through the process with that previous person who asked all those questions has made you better, and you weren't even aware of it.
Right.
And then same thing with when you're backing entrepreneurs. I back all these entrepreneurs, and and I think that every single one of them is going to be successful. And the ones that become successful are so much more successful than I ever imagined. When we funded Hotmail, when I said, why don't you put a little message at the bottom of everybody's screen that says, P.S. I love you, get your free email at Hotmail. And they thought I was crazy, and I kept pounding. And finally they said, okay, but no P.S. I love you. We'll just do get your free email at Hotmail. Well, it spread to 11 million users in 18 months, fastest growing consumer product in the history of the world at that time. And I didn't think that was going to be that big a deal. I mean, I knew that it was going to kind of spread from customer to customer, but I had no idea that, the founder sent one of his emails to India, and within 3 weeks, we had 100,000 registered Hotmail users in India. That kind of thing. And now people use viral marketing all the time, and think of how fast now products and services spread around the world. I had no idea that my little comment was going to actually make that huge impact. And then I probably spent hours and hours on some company that died,
right,
and made no real impact on the world. But all of that work that I put in on that one made it better so that I could understand what might be happening with Hotmail.
Right. It's all pattern recognition, isn't it? And, it's all wisdom. I had a mentor 20 years ago tell me everything's to your advantage. And a lot of times I noodle on that. And when things go exactly against you, when it goes 180 against you, sometimes just saying to yourself, everything's to my advantage, when it doesn't feel like it, allows you to shift and put that thought to try and tip it, right? Because you go, well, how is this to my advantage? You have to ask the question, how is this to my advantage?
That's good. I like that.
So it was good advice. It's something that stuck with me. And you're kind of saying the same thing. That's why I'm bringing it up. I super appreciate you. I know everyone does. This has been one of my favorite interviews. We've had a couple in the past that we've done together, but this was great, Tim. I really appreciate you on behalf of everybody. Thank you for being here.
Great. Well, Chris, thanks again for having me. There are also those interviewers who say, I had this guy on once, I'll never have him on again.
I have a trouble believing that one, but okay. Thanks.
Anyway, great. Thanks for having me on the show. And I love what you guys are doing. Keep up the good work.
Awesome. Thanks.